My father is a corrupt official who bought me a husband. As long as he married into our family, he would save his wrongly imprisoned parents. This impoverished scholar was forced to marry me. Later, my father's property was confiscated. The day before my family was ruined, I drove him out and he left without looking back. Later, I worked as a wine maid in a tavern in Minzhou, while he rose to a high position and was about to marry the daughter of a minister. I wished them a perfect match and eternal unity, yet, with reddened eyes, he grabbed me and asked, "Do you have no heart?" I never thought I would ever meet Liu Shiqian again in this lifetime. The innkeeper instructed me to bring peach blossom wine to the side room, saying that the guest was an important figure from the capital and that I should serve him carefully. I had just come out of the wine cellar, washed my hands, and brought the wine over, when I entered the room. He was standing with his back to me, tall and graceful. Li Ziyue sat beside him, her face as radiant as a peach blossom, a talented scholar and a beautiful woman, like a painting. With just one glance at the background, I recognized it. I lowered my head as much as I could, hoping the hair in front of my forehead and the headscarf would cover my face. I gently placed the wine on the table in front of them from behind. As I was about to leave, someone at the table called out to me, "Miss, could you warm the wine for us?" I bowed slightly and, with my back turned to them, began warming the wine on the small stove in the room. It had been nearly 5 years since we parted, and I had become quite skilled at warming wine, just as skillfully as he used to warm wine for me before. A faint flame flickered on the small stove, and a gentle heat rose from the wine pot. Everyone at the table flattered him. This visit by Minister Liu in person is truly a blessing for our Minzhou. There is also Minister Shangshu's daughter, Miss Li. Our Minzhou fish maw is renowned throughout the world and is especially nourishing for women. Tomorrow, I will send some to the magistrate's residence. Sir and Miss Li are a perfect match, truly made for each other. The Shiqian temple in Minzhou is very efficacious. Tomorrow, I can take you and the young lady there to seek a blessing for your marriage. My hand, which was stirring the wine, paused, nearly spilling it. Liu Shiqian did not respond, and Li Ziyue shyly lowered her head. The person continued to flatter. Lord Liu is the youngest prime minister in history and has not yet married, which shows how deeply he cares for Miss Li. Liu Shiqian's expression remained unchanged, while Li Ziyue looked at him with some nervousness. The atmosphere in the room was strangely quiet. After a long while, Liu Shiqian spoke calmly. "I am already married," he continued. "It's just that she is no longer with us." Li Ziyue explained softly, "Shiqian is a person of deep affection, which is why he has remained unmarried all these years. So that's the case. Minister Liu is truly a man of sentiment. Minister Liu and Miss Li are sure to be a well-matched couple in the future." Liu Shiqian did not argue back, and everyone moved on to other topics. I poured the warmed wine into small cups and, with my head lowered, placed them one by one on the table behind me. After setting the last cup in front of Liu Shiqian, I picked up the wine pot and prepared to leave the room. A man at the table raised his cup, accidentally spilling some wine, and called out to stop me. "Wait, young lady, bring me a silk handkerchief to wipe my hands." I fetched the handkerchief and lowered my head to wipe the lord's hands, but Liu Shiqian, who was standing beside him, blocked my hand. "It's just a little wine, no need to wipe it. You may go now," the lord repeatedly agreed. I hurriedly responded and rushed out, but Li Ziyue suddenly spoke up. "Wait, young lady, lift your head and let me have a look." Holding the brocade handkerchief, I hesitated to turn around and raise my head. Li Ziyue stood up to come over. "I heard that the prefect has brought distinguished guests today. The food and drinks today are my humble offering to welcome and honor the prefect and the esteemed guests." A gentle voice was heard as when you pushed the door open and entered. Bowing to everyone in the private room, he then added, "Your presence at my Yizhong restaurant truly brings great honor to this humble little eatery. Miss Chu, please go and bring the best jar of peach blossom wine." He gently pushed me out. I hurried downstairs. Another wine maiden in the building had already fetched the wine and was walking towards the private room while talking to me. "Miss Chu, the proprietor has instructed that I will serve that room. Please go elsewhere, thank you." "Sister," I hurriedly ran back to the rear courtyard, but my heart, which had been racing wildly since I entered the room, still couldn't calm down, I closed the door to the wine cellar and slid down to sit on the floor. If you ask who the most hated person by this youngest prime minister in history is, it's probably me. I am his deceased wife. 7 years ago, my father was still the prime minister of the former dynasty. He held a position second only to the emperor in the capital. He was also the great corrupt official that everyone wanted to eliminate, and everyone knew that the private treasury of the prime minister's residence was comparable to the national treasury, and I was the precious daughter of the prime minister's residence, the apple of my father's eye. That year, I followed my father on an inspection tour to Jiangnan for leisure, and in Yangzhou, I met Liu Shiqian. He was 18 at the time, and his family had been teaching in private schools for generations. His parents and clansmen were imprisoned after being falsely accused of writing rebellious poetry. When I got off the carriage, he was beating the drum at the government office to appeal for justice. His figure was thin but exceptionally upright, his hands holding the drumsticks high as he struck the drum with force. Again and again, even in coarse cloth clothing, it was hard to conceal the imposing aura about him. The guard at the yamen kicked him down from the stone steps in front of the mansion, and he fell to the ground in a sorry state. I ordered someone to help him up, and with just that one glance, I could never forget him. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, his thin lips tightly pressed together, and even though the corner of his mouth was bleeding from the beating, he didn't make a sound. His downcast eyes were covered by long eyelashes, and even covered in dust and dirt, his striking beauty was hard to conceal. I took him back to the mansion and told him I could help, on the condition that he return to the capital with me. But how could the prime minister's daughter, who could command the wind and rain in the capital, tolerate rejection? I started pestering him every day. The turning point came when he heard that many in the prison had contracted the plague, and he rushed to the government office in a hurry, and my servant told him that on the second day I met him, I had already sent someone to bring out his parents and relatives, buying a courtyard in the suburbs to settle them. His father and mother were safe and sound. He agreed to return to the capital with me after coming back from visiting the suburbs. It was only long after I married him that I found out my father had given his parents 1,000 gold, demanding that he must marry into my family. I thought I had saved his parents and helped him. Little did I know, I had actually crushed his self-esteem. During the years we were married, I gave him many expensive gifts, but he refused every one of them. He never attended social engagements in the capital, spending his days studying and practicing calligraphy in the study. Gradually, it feels as if I've become a person without emotions, only at night, in the intimacy of the bed. His fierce gasps and silent embraces make me feel that he is still alive. From the initial joy of marriage, I slowly turned to worry and fear. It's as if he found a cage and locked himself inside. In the 3rd year of marriage, the Prime Minister's residence was raided. Box after box of treasury silver was carried out from the residence, along with cartloads of antiques, paintings, and rare treasures. The corrupt Prime Minister, shackled and in chains, was hauled away in a prison cart to the execution ground. The commoners along the road loudly cursed the corrupt official, throwing all sorts of things at the prison cart. By the time he reached the execution platform, he was already battered and bleeding. All of this, I only learned about my father's affairs after arriving in Minzhou, from the mouths of others. On the night before the family was raided, my father took the silver notes and shoved me onto a carriage heading south. The 9 branches of the family were executed, the remaining men were exiled, and the women were sold off. My father used all his connections to buy a woman from outside to take my place at the execution ground, so that I could live on. My father has always protected me well since I was young, but I am not foolish either. During those days, I already felt the unrest in the situation and had a bad premonition. A few days before the house was raided, I gave Liu Shiqian a divorce letter. I told him, "You should leave." I didn't mention the possible changes and just made up some excuses to brush him off. "You're becoming more and more boring." He stopped asking and turned to leave. I think he must be happy. After all, he's free now. From then on, I had no parents, no home, and no husband. Not long after my father was executed, the current emperor rose up from among the common people and, within 3 months, overthrew the corrupt and doomed former dynasty's emperor from his throne. Thus, a new dynasty began, and Liu Shiqian, who was already full of talent, had been unable to showcase his abilities because I had imprisoned him. I don't know what he went through after he left, but when I heard about him again, he had already become a key minister who helped the emperor ascend the throne in the new dynasty, and the youngest prime minister at that. I just never expected that Li Ziyue would become the daughter of the Minister of Revenue, and she is about to marry Liu Shiqian. Li Ziyue is the daughter of the richest man in Yangzhou back then. When we went to Yangzhou, her father and the prefect treated us with great hospitality. When I was pestering Liu Shiqian, she had already been trying for months without success. Later, when I intercepted and took Liu Shiqian away midway, she must have held a grudge against me. Now, the two of them, one a young prime minister, the other a minister's daughter, I told myself that they, a talented scholar and a beautiful lady, were indeed a perfect match, pretending not to feel the bitterness in my heart. When Li Ziyue came to the backyard, I was fetching water to wash the wine jugs. It was early winter, the weather was cold, and the well water was icy, making my hands turn slightly red in the water. Dressed in luxurious attire, she stood in the messy backyard, looking completely out of place. She glared at me indignantly. "Xia Buan, it really is you. You're actually working as a wine maiden here." I looked at her calmly. "Miss, my name is Chu Bankxia." She paced back and forth, scrutinizing me. The hairpin on her head swayed gently with her movements, shimmering brightly in the sunlight. I just feel upset inside. She didn't seem to be listening to me at all, sneering contemptuously. "Your family was raided, and you actually managed to escape. Do the people here know you're the daughter of a corrupt official? How absurd. You should be thankful that a new dynasty has taken over and doesn't hold grudges. Otherwise, if I just had my father report you, you'd be arrested and executed immediately. These hands of yours, weren't they once the most skilled at painting in the capital? Everyone said your paintings were priceless. Can you still paint like this now?" I look at my hands. I used to love painting in the study. Now, after daily labor, they have become rough and are no longer what they used to be. She continued to press aggressively. "Look at you now. You used to wear silk and satin, changing your clothes every day. Now you've fallen to such a state, the fabric of your clothes wouldn't even be used to mop the floors in my mansion. What I'm wearing is the most common cotton clothing among the common people. The fabric is coarse, but it keeps me very warm. Miss, this fabric is very warm. Everyone in the common folk wears it." She laughed as if she had heard some strange news, covering her mouth. "Ha, I never thought I'd see you like this one day. Are you struggling, short on silver? If you beg me, I'll give you some. This hairpin on my head probably costs more than you could earn in a year working as a tavern maid here." She casually took off a hairpin from her head and threw it at my feet. "Thank you, miss. But it's not necessary." I quietly watched her, but she only grew angrier. After all, I had already fallen into destitution. Yet I did not beg for mercy as she had expected. She was about to speak again when the servant came to call her. "Miss Li, Lord Liu says it's time to go." Li Ziyue gathered her imposing aura and walked out, then suddenly turned back to glare at me with a fierce warning. "Don't show up in front of Shiqian." Then she hurriedly left. I knew what she was worried about. After all, I was once married to Liu Shiqian, and she doesn't know what feelings Liu Shiqian holds for me. She wants to marry Liu Shiqian, but she doesn't dare to take the risk. After the restaurant closed, there was still cleaning to be done, and by the time I got home, it was almost midnight. With the moon high in the sky, I live in a small house in the alley behind the restaurant. I didn't notice anything unusual until I lit the oil lamp and saw Liu Shiqian sitting on the couch. Seeing the light on, he picked up a folding fan from the pile on the small table beside the couch and began to play with it. It gave me quite a fright. After 5 years, looking directly at him again, I felt my whole body grow cold and stiff. He is still as handsome as the first time I saw him, but the him from 5 years ago was youthful and tender, while now he has matured a lot, exuding an oppressive aura of someone in power. His gaze was obscure and unfathomable, fixed on me for a moment before he finally spoke. "Do you have to buy wine at this hour every day?" I timidly whispered. "I can only leave after the tavern closes." Seeing that he didn't respond, I had to ask him, "Why are you in my room, sir? This is my private residence, even as the Prime Minister. You cannot trespass." He refused. He gave a strange smile and stood up. I lowered my head and said, "Please leave quickly, sir. As the Prime Minister, it wouldn't be good if the neighbors saw you." He walked up to me in a few steps, as if he had been holding back for a long time, and finally let his emotions erupt. "Don't you know why I'm here, Heroine?" He pressed forward step by step, and I retreated step by step until my back was against the wooden door. "All these years, you were clearly alive. Yet you changed your name, fled to the south, and no one could find you. You're truly something." I didn't look up. My voice was very low. "You should know that the Prime Minister's residence has been raided. My entire family is gone. My father exhausted all means just to get me out alone. I am no longer that young lady from the Prime Minister's residence." He grabbed my wrist, his grip so strong it hurt. "Why didn't you come to me? What? Do you think I'm too poor and powerless to support you? Why is life so destitute? Didn't your father leave you any money?" I hunched my shoulders and remained silent. "Or do you think I'm just too dull, and even in poverty, you don't want to be with someone as boring as me?" That's not it. I just don't know what I would do if I went back. My whole family is dead, and it seems like I should seek revenge, but my father was a truly corrupt official. No matter how much he loved me, it doesn't change the fact that he was a corrupt official, traveling south from the capital. That period was the end of the previous dynasty. Along the way, I saw starving corpses everywhere, refugees displaced, and the common people all cursing the heavy burden of taxes and the cruelty of the officials. It was a scene I had never witnessed in my first 18 years. The fine wines and silks my father gave me were built upon the suffering of these people. Whom should I hate? Whom should I seek revenge against? My father gave me a very large sum of money, enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life, but I can no longer spend that money. After witnessing the suffering of the common people, those banknotes look to me like blood-stained notes. They are stained with the blood of the people, and with my father's blood, I traveled around, giving alms and saving lives. I donated medicine to clinics, food to charity kitchens, and funds to the rebel army. By the time I arrived in Minzhou, I was already penniless. But how could I possibly say these things to Liu Shiqian, after all? He was once the husband my father bought for me at the cost of 1,000 gold. I looked up at him and said, "You're about to get married. I wish you a perfect match and eternal unity of hearts." I sincerely wished him well, for he deserved the most beautiful love in the world. Liu Shiqian gripped my hand even tighter, as if trying to break it. His eyes were bloodshot, and he gritted his teeth as he asked, "After 5 years apart, is this all you have to say to me, Heroine? Do you have no heart?" I whispered softly. "Liu Shiqian, I'm getting married too. Due to the Prime Minister's personal visit, a banquet will be held at the prefect's residence to entertain all the officials under the jurisdiction of Minzhou." When the prefect's steward came to inform Yizhon restaurant to supply the drinks, the restaurant was filled with many seated guests. Yizhon restaurant is not the largest establishment in Minzhou city, so being entrusted with such an important banquet for the prefect's residence is truly a rare opportunity. Everyone in the restaurant congratulated Wen Yizhan one after another. The butler smiled as he looked at Wen Yizhan. "Master Wen, the peach blossom wine in your shop is truly exceptional and deeply loved by the Lord. The Lord has instructed Madame Chu from the establishment to stay at the prefect's residence these days to take charge of the wine arrangements for the official banquet." When Yizhan stopped me in the backyard, "Banksia, if you are unwilling, I will handle the prefect on your behalf." I sighed. Since he specifically asked for me, he is unlikely to relent. If I refuse, it might bring trouble to the tavern. It's only a few days, it should be fine. But that Liu Shiqian, I quickly stopped him. How could the Prime Minister's name be spoken so casually these days, when Yizhan had been running a tavern in the capital for 5 years? Famous throughout the city for his peach blossom wine, during the time I was married to Liu Shiqian, I loved taking him to the tavern for a few drinks. Every time, Liu Shiqian would personally warm the wine for me. Later, when the rebel army reached the capital, when Yizhan closed the tavern and left the city, traveling for several months before arriving in Minzhou, because every time I went to the tavern in the capital, I made quite a scene. when Izao had long recognized me. When we first met in Minzhou, I was so destitute that I didn't even have a place to stay. When Izao was very surprised, and upon hearing my story, he intended to give me some money. Miss Xia, I have benefited greatly from your family's patronage over the years in the capital. The money I earned from the Prime Minister's residence is already substantial. You don't need to repay me if you take this silver. There is no Prime Minister's residence anymore, nor is there a Miss Xia. I am now called Chu Bankxia. If you want to help me, just give me a job. After that, I stayed at his tavern and started working as a wine maiden. When Yiji knew about my relationship with Liu Shiqian, which is why he was so nervous this time, he didn't understand the details. But from an outsider's perspective, it probably looked like a story of a spoiled prime minister's daughter forcing herself on a poor scholar. Now, the prime minister's daughter has fallen so low that she's selling wine in a tavern, while the poor scholar has risen to a high position and holds a grudge over the past humiliation. But Liu Shiqian's status is no longer what it used to be, and I can't let the tavern suffer because of me. In fact, since he stormed out of my room that night, we hadn't seen each other for several days, now that I've been arranged to live in the mansion. It's also in a remote courtyard. Mixing and brewing wine in the mansion, without having to serve drinks or entertain guests with smiles, is much more leisurely than working in a tavern. He asked why. The candles in the prefect's mansion are much brighter than the oil lamps in ordinary households. At night, I sat by the table, embroidering a silk handkerchief by the light of the fire, and my eyes did not feel as dry and uncomfortable as usual. The next day, I needed to deliver the newly embroidered silk handkerchiefs to the embroidery workshop, but it had been raining since morning, starting at sunrise and continuing without pause until nearly noon. Today was the agreed-upon delivery day with the workshop, and it could not be delayed. I took an umbrella and left the alley through the back door of the prefect's residence. There was some standing water on the road, and as I left the alley, the rain grew heavier, making the path muddy and slippery. I stepped into a puddle, stumbled, and fell forward, clutching the brocade handkerchief tightly in my arms. I used my other hand to brace myself against the ground. The rough gravel on the ground scraped my palm, but the bundle of brocade handkerchiefs in my arms remained untouched by the muddy water, thankfully. Otherwise all the time spent these days would have been wasted. The umbrella had already fallen to the ground and gotten wet. A large umbrella was held over my head, and I was helped to my feet. Liu Shiqian looked at me with some anger. We had already left a distance from the back door of the magistrate's residence, and I didn't know when he had started following me. I held the brocade handkerchief tightly with one hand and tried to hide the other. His eyes were slightly red. Let's go back to the residence and clean the wound. I shook my head. The embroidery workshop is just around the corner. I need to deliver the embroidery cloth today. I'll take you there. When we arrived at the embroidery workshop, even though I had wrapped the brocade handkerchief as tightly as possible, the outermost layers inevitably got wet. Shopkeeper, since this brocade handkerchief is wet, there's no need to pay for it. The shopkeeper is a businessman with shrewd eyes. Liu Shiqian, who came with me, though I don't know his exact status, was dressed in brocade robes that appeared understated. However, as the owner of an embroidery workshop, I could tell at a glance that the fabric was of the highest quality. He waved his hand with a smile. No need, Madam Chu, let's settle the bill at the original price. Back at the prefect's residence, he followed me into the cramped little room where I was staying, watching me fetch water to wash my hands. He remained silent for a long time. I didn't want to have any more dealings with him, so I forced myself not to look at him. I dried my hands and was about to leave when he grabbed my arm. You need to apply medicine. I smiled. Why bother with medicine for such a minor injury? Over the past 5 years, I've endured far worse wounds than this. A servant came in to deliver the medicine, and I had no idea when he had given the order. I was feeling a bit annoyed. What if the servant tells Li Ziyue about this? Liu Shiqian's voice was calm. Do you still care what others think? Although I am of humble status, I do not wish to ruin someone else's good marriage. He pulled me to sit down and carefully applied medicine to my hand. In the past, you would cry over the slightest injury. Today, your entire palm is wounded, yet you dare not shed a tear. Indeed, 5 years ago, if I suffered even a minor injury, the entire Prime Minister's residence would have been in an uproar. Now, what right do I have to cry? Only after carefully bandaging me did he look at me and say, I have no intention of marrying Lee Ziyue. I brought her to Minzhou because I'm investigating her father for embezzlement. I was stunned for a moment. Is this something that can be told to me so casually? You shouldn't be telling me these things. His words were ambiguous. With you, there's nothing I can't say. Moreover, I've never married in the capital. Having such an identity by my side can save a lot of trouble. He casually fiddled with my embroidery frame, which held scattered needles, threads, and fabric. You're a wine seller, a fan painter, and now you're embroidering silk handkerchiefs. Why are you so short on money? How could the wages I give you for warming a cup of wine not be enough for your living expenses? My tone was stiff. Who would ever think they have too much money? Liu Shiqian didn't let go of my hand. All right. Then tell me more. You said you're getting married. I had someone ask at the tavern, and Lady Chu has no engagement. Tell me who that person is. And when are you two getting married? I remained silent. He, however, laughed and pulled me closer by my wrist. What, can't you speak? And since you're about to marry someone else, why are you still wearing this? He lifted my sleeve, revealing a lucky cord with a small jade pendant attached. The jade pendant was carved with a tiny character 4WAN. Because of the passage of time, the red cord has faded and darkened. This is the bracelet he gave me on our wedding day. After I brought him back to the capital, his demeanor remained very calm, respectful toward my parents but not subservient. As a high-ranking official, my father had some reservations about this, worrying that Liu Shiqian might harbor ulterior motives in the future. So, like raising a pet, my father also clipped his wings. I didn't understand these things before, but in recent years, as I've stepped out of the inner chambers, I've slowly come to realize them. He must have felt deeply humiliated during those years, but I failed to grasp his situation and feelings. Instead, I pestered him every day with food, drink, and entertainment, unaware that his ambitions lay far beyond such things. He doesn't accept the expensive gifts I give him, and rarely wears those luxurious clothes except when going out. On our wedding day, he was unusually happy in the capital, drank the nuptial wine, and his eyes sparkled as he looked at me. Actually, he isn't very good at drinking alcohol. After a few cups, his face turns red and he gets drunk. Liu Shiqian took out a pair of auspicious cords from his chest, each adorned with a jade pendant, one engraved with WN and the other with Shi. He blushed, slipped the auspicious cord onto my wrist, and kissed me. This is a peace knot, Buan. From now on, I will surely protect you and keep you safe for life. How could he not know his father's worries? Although he never showed it in front of his parents, his heart was as clear as a mirror. I think he must have liked me back then. That jade pendant was carved by his own hands, clumsily. But now, our roles have reversed. He is dressed in fine clothes and adorned with many expensive accessories, while I am dressed in simple attire, without even a single piece of jewelry. Thinking of this, the bitterness in my heart swelled more and more, and my eyes began to redden. Liu Shiqian gently held me in his arms. It's not too late. Do you remember what day it is today? Of course I remember. The 16th day of the 12th lunar month. It is the day of my marriage to him. He took out another pair of auspicious cords from his embrace, with jade pendants that were even more exquisite, and the engraving craftsmanship was much finer. I promised to keep you safe. See. After years of practice, my skills have improved, haven't they? I struggled free from his embrace. I shouldn't have accepted your gift, Lord Liu. If you still have feelings for me in your heart, why are you being so distant with me? Liu Shiqian's tone was somewhat agitated. Come back to the capital with me. I'm not going. You should. Before he could finish speaking, the door was pushed open. Lord Liu, why are you holding my fiancé's hand? When Yizhan pushed the door open and entered, Liu Shiqian froze, the auspicious rope in his hand falling to the ground. He looked displeased. She is my wife. When Yizhan smiled gently, her name is Chu Bangxia. She is my betrothed. May I ask what your wife's name is? Lord Liu. Liu Shiqian's face turned red and then pale. That's right. Xia Buan's household registration had been destroyed when her father was executed. I am now Chu Bangxia. Even if he uses his official authority to pressure others, Chu Bangxia is not his wife, in the end. Liu Shiqian stormed off in anger. I bowed to Wen Yizhan. Brother Yizhan, thank you, he smiled bitterly. Bangxia, you know I have my own selfish motives too. Over the years in Minzhou, I wasn't unaware of Wen Yizhan's feelings for me. He had expressed his feelings to me several times, but I always pretended not to know. It's just that this time, I asked him to pretend to be my fiancé to deal with Liu Shiqian, who will be staying in Minzhou for a while. I have no romantic feelings for him. In the 5 years I've been in Minzhou, I've only considered him a friend. I appreciate his help, and that's all. He took half a step forward. Bangxia, I can protect you, at least in Minzhou. You know my feelings for you. He left you when you were down and out, and now he's back. Who knows what his reasons are, Brother Yizhan? I understand, and I thank you for today. I'm afraid you might go back to that cutthroat place. Times have changed, I'm just worried. I know he was worried about how I would face those from my past if I really returned to the capital. A prime minister's daughter who faked her death would surely have a hard time. After the new year, Liu Shiqian set off for the capital, and I still went with him. A few days before our return, he came to see me and got straight to the point. I paid the money on your behalf and will continue to support that child. He actually went and investigated me. Back then, my father spent a considerable amount of silver to arrange for a terminally ill woman from another family to take my place at the execution ground. The woman agreed to go to the guillotine with only one request: to help raise her son and support him in pursuing education and achieving scholarly honors. Only later did I find out that the middleman had pocketed all the silver, and that farming family never received a single coin. Over the years, I've tried my best to earn more silver, all for the sake of being able to afford that child's tuition at the private school. Liu Shiqian did all this for me, and I just felt powerless, still having to rely on him in the end. He took out another pair of jade pendants, and as soon as he saw me, he couldn't hold back his tears. That is father and mother's jade pendant. They had a pair of dragon and phoenix jade pendants, which they always wore close to their bodies, after father was executed. I went to the desolate mountain burial ground to search for their remains. I have already buried them, and their memorial tablets are in the ancestral hall of the Prime Minister's residence. It's not too late, come back to the capital with me. Throughout all those years of marriage, he had never called my father Dad, but now, he was calling him Dad. I agreed, I should go back to pay respects to my parents. Liu Shiqian, however, did not look very happy. He smiled bitterly. Back then, you spent money for me, and now it's my turn to spend money for you. Back then, I returned to the capital with you because of my parents, and now I can only force you to return to the capital because of your parents. He, just as I had forced him back then, used my parents to force me to go back with him. The roles have reversed, and now I understand how it felt. Back then, he had also unwillingly come to the capital. Now it's my turn, returning to the capital. I moved into the Prime Minister's residence. The Prime Minister's residence was built on the former site of the previous dynasty's mansion, the very estate I had lived in for 18 years. Cheng 1111, the second daughter of the capital's largest painting studio, was my closest female companion during my earlier days in the capital. Now, her elder brother has entered the Hanlin Academy and become a Hanlin scholar. 1111 was already married, and just a few days after I returned to the capital, she came to see me. As soon as she saw me, she hugged me with tears in her eyes. I teased her, "You're already a married woman, why are you crying like a child? Xia Buan, how could you be alive and not send me a message?" I looked down at my toes. After some thought, I decided to speak the words I've held in my heart all these years. 1111, for the first decade or so of my life, I lived in the exquisite world my father created for me. I never even suffered an injury. But with such a major upheaval in the Prime Minister's residence, I feel as though my life has lost all hope. Sometimes I think, since my family is already gone, why should I continue living alone in this world? Yet, I don't have the courage to end my life. Father went to such great lengths to keep me alive. If I were to die like this, how could I face him? He must have wanted me to live happily. But I can't return to the capital, and I can no longer be Xia Buan. 1111 sighed. During the time right after the Prime Minister's residence fell into misfortune, Liu Shiqian went to dig through the mountain of corpses. He went to the desolate mountain burial ground, searching day after day for your parents' remains. In the middle of the night, he came knocking on the gate of my Cheng residence and entrusted me with the task of burying your parents. 1111 glanced at my expression and continued, "You know, he had always been somewhat afraid of your parents. The night before the Prime Minister's residence was raided, perhaps having heard some rumors, he pleaded for a long time at the gate to see you. Your father's servant told him to leave, saying that you had long grown tired of him. He sat at the door all night, and the next morning, as soon as the sky began to lighten, the people who came to confiscate the property arrived. He went mad, trying to rush inside. It was my brother who held him back firmly outside. At that time, I thought he had gone mad. Only now do I realize that he was also at the execution ground that day. He could tell that it wasn't you. He was certain you hadn't died. He told me that with turmoil everywhere, he was going to join the uprising. Looking back now, perhaps he felt that if the situation stabilized, you would be able to live a better life. I know, in truth, it was because he understood that only by gaining power and influence could he find the person he wanted and protect those he wished to shield. Why can't he find you?" I smiled bitterly. "When my father sent me away, he gave me a household registration. 10 years ago, he had already created an identity for me, leaving a way out, a young lady born and raised in the farthest Minzhou, Chu Banxia. From that day on, there was no Xia Buan in the world, only Chu Banxia. How could he possibly find me? I just don't understand." I thought Liu Shiqian left happily, feeling liberated. I once saw letters he exchanged with his old friends from Yangzhou, in which he wrote, "It is a great regret that I cannot fulfill my ambitions in this lifetime." I gave him the divorce papers, and he took them and left, as if there wasn't a trace of attachment. But why did he come back to the Prime Minister's residence to look for me? After 5 years apart, Cheng 1111 dragged me along to drink ourselves into a stupor. From the days of climbing trees and catching fish together in our childhood, she cried all the way through the years we were separated as adults. It wasn't until the hour of high that 1111's husband came to the estate to take her home. Wine is truly a wonderful thing. Drinking too much can make you forget the troubles of these years. When Liu Shiqian arrived, I was sitting on the stone steps, holding a wine pot, drowsy and half asleep. Not too late, he crouched in front of me, gently pinching my cheek. This was an action he often did to me in those years. My tears fell silently. "Liu Shiqian, I'm really so tired." Liu Shiqian was clearly panicked and pulled me into his embrace. I only felt an immense sense of grievance in my heart. "The bed I sleep on is so hard. Woo-woo, I really miss my soft bed and that brocade cloud quilt." My hands hurt so much from brewing peach blossom wine in the winter. After brewing, I couldn't even hold a brush to paint. I'm so tired of having to work every day. For 5 years, I haven't had a single day off. It's been so long since I've had a pretty dress. I've almost forgotten how old I am. I cried bitterly. And Liu Shiqian held me gently, comforting me. He scooped me up into his arms. I stared at him, as if we had just gotten married. "This is my handsome husband." I pulled down his neck and kissed him. "I've wanted to do this for a long time. I've really missed him for years." I used to love sneaking kisses when he least expected it, and every time his ears would turn red. But today, why is his face so flushed too? Liu Shiqian was momentarily stunned, then held me even tighter, kissing me back with wild intensity. "Who am I? Buan. You are my husband." Like dry wood meeting a fierce fire, it ignited instantly, the moment my back hit the bed. The candlelight in the room flickered and went out. I felt as though I was repeatedly lifted to the clouds, only to fall again. The bed curtains danced lightly, a night of spring's passion. Opening my eyes again, the sun was already high in the sky, and I felt a headache coming on. Before I could even think about the events of last night, a cold voice reached my ears. "You're awake. Come and have your meal. The water for washing your face is ready." Liu Shiqian brought over my clothes. Just as he had done all those years. Yesterday, although I had been drinking, I wasn't so drunk that I couldn't remember anything. Last night, I was the one who made the first move. We are already divorced, so doing this is truly inappropriate. it's one thing for me to indulge while drunk, but he has always been the one who values propriety the most. As if sensing my regret, Liu Shiqian pulled me into his embrace. It's not too late, we never divorced. I tore up the divorce papers the day I left. I looked up at him in surprise. I thought he had long wanted a divorce and never imagined he would do this. He helped me change my clothes, then took me to have a meal, carefully picking out the fish bones for me. Just like before, he always carefully picks out the fish bones for me. You used to love painting the most, and your paintings were quite famous in the capital. In Minzhou, I saw you painting on folding fans for others. Surely, you still enjoy it, don't you? I've already spoken with Boss Cheng. How about you continue painting from now on? It turned out he had seen the folding fan in my room that day. I couldn't afford good paper, nor could I afford good brushes and ink. Moreover, I looked down at my hands. Years of labor had left my fingers red and swollen, with joints even slightly deformed. I could still paint simple folding fans, but it had been a long time since I had created the kind of paintings I used to make. No, I haven't painted in a long time. Liu Shiqian held my hand tightly, rubbing the calluses that had formed over the years, his eyes slightly red. Actually, I've already paid my respects to my parents. I'm planning to return to Minzhou. Liu Shiqian led me to the study, which was unexpectedly filled with my old paintings, and the finest brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones were all laid out on the table. He didn't speak, but pulled me to sit in front of the desk, accompanying me as I painted stroke by stroke. At this moment, it truly felt like we had returned to the past. I was painting, and he was quietly studying by my side. I had thought Liu Shiqian would keep me confined in his residence and had already started planning my escape, but he sent me to the Cheng residence. I shook my head with a smile. It's not too late. I don't want you to appear without a clear identity. Xia Buan is considered gone in the eyes of the world, but you can use the identity of Chu Banxia to stand tall in the capital and become the most admired young lady in the city. He looked at me. Buan, don't run away anymore. Wherever you go, I will follow you. I settled into the Cheng residence as cousin 1111. The princess sent out invitations for her birthday banquet, and surprisingly, the invitation included me as well. It was likely due to the recent rumors circulating in the capital. The young Prime Minister Liu had fallen in love with the cousin of the Hanlin academician Cheng. The banquet was filled with nobles, with the princess seated in the highest position. I sat with 1111 in the most remote corner. Many noble ladies showcased their talents, and Li Ziyue even painted a splendid portrait of a court lady on the spot. Earning the princess's admiration, Li Ziyue raised her chin slightly and bowed in gratitude. Thank you for your praise, Your Highness. However, I have heard that the young lady from the Cheng family is also exceptionally skilled in painting. I wonder if she might grace us with a demonstration. She looked at me with a provocative gaze. 1111 was about to stand up and retort, but I stopped her. Li Ziyue simply wanted to see me make a fool of myself at the banquet. She had seen my hands in Minzhou, swollen, rough, and stiff-jointed, and was certain that my painting skills had deteriorated. I glanced at Liu Shiqian from a distance. He took a sip of wine and met my eyes. I stood up and walked to the center of the hall to bow. Your Highness, my painting skills are poor. I fear I may spoil Your Highness's enjoyment. Before the princess could speak, Li Ziyue sneered. Ha! Could it be that Miss Cheng is unwilling to offer her blessings for the princess's birthday? But with your unsightly hands, it would indeed dampen the mood. Everyone looked at my hands. There was no delicate, smooth skin, only reddened calluses. 1111 angrily stood up. What does my hand have to do with my painting skills? You're just afraid of being outshone by Banxia. 1111 is quick-tempered and easily falls into traps. Fearing she might speak without restraint, I bowed in return. Your Highness, I am willing to paint for you. With brush, ink, paper, and inkstone all prepared, I picked up the brush and began to paint. At first, there were murmurs of discussion all around, but as the painting gradually unfolded, the voices of discussion grew quieter until there was complete silence. What I painted was none other than the famous work 100 Birds Paying Homage to the Phoenix. The masterpiece that made the talented daughter of the capital and the Prime Minister's daughter famous 7 years ago. This painting had long been destroyed during the raid on the Prime Minister's residence. The maid mounted the painting on a wooden frame and displayed it to the crowd, prompting whispers to arise. Compared to Li Ziyue's ordinary painting of a court lady, the difference was immediately clear. These past few days, Liu Shiqian has been accompanying me in practicing my painting skills. I never expected to showcase them today. Miss Li's painting is more fitting for the occasion, echoing the renowned 100 Battles painting by the Prime Minister. Indeed, the cousin's painting still lacks a bit of artistic conception. There were still many people who, because of Liu Shiqian's influence, flattered Li Ziyue. The princess sat upright above, smiling lightly. What does Minister Liu think? I believe that Miss Cheng's painting all birds paying homage to the phoenix demonstrates superior technique, symbolizing the princess soaring through the 9 heavens like a phoenix. It is truly a breathtaking masterpiece. Upon hearing this, Li Ziyue's expression turned alternately red and pale. Liu Shiqian's meaning was already made clear. The princess laughed heartily. Indeed, I find Miss Cheng's paintings more to my liking. After the banquet, Li Ziyue cornered me outside the palace gate by the carriage. Xia Buan, how much longer are you going to cling to Shiqian? I looked at her coldly. She was angered by my gaze, and seeing that I remained silent, she grew even more furious. Don't you know he is going to marry me? Do you have any idea how insecure he felt during all those years he was married to you? You knew nothing about his ideals and ambitions, treating him like a plaything. And now, do you want to become his plaything? Her words were harsh, deliberately aimed at hitting where it hurt. I didn't want to say much to her here, but when she said Liu Shiqian was like a plaything, she really struck a nerve. I shot her a sharp glare. Li Ziyue, what gives you the right to ask me that? Li Ziyue froze. He has no marriage contract with you. He just never clarified it. Did that scene at the palace banquet not shatter your illusions? She felt somewhat embarrassed, her tone growing weaker. Xia Buan, you've already had him. Back in Yangju, I was the one who noticed him first. Shouldn't you let him be with me now? I sneered in disdain. You like him, it's you who likes him. So you had his parents falsely accused and imprisoned, trying to make him dependent on you. Is that it? Li Ziyue's face instantly lost all color. I may have fallen on hard times, but that doesn't mean I haven't investigated what happened back then. My gaze toward her was cold and penetrating. Back in Yangju, when I brought Liu Shiqi into the magistrate's residence, you stopped me at the gate and asked me a question. Do you not remember what you said? You ask me, just because she's the Prime Minister's daughter, does that mean she can take by force? Clearly, he should be the one begging you. So why am I stepping in? Li Ziyue insisted stubbornly. Isn't that exactly what you're doing? Taking by force? He clearly met me first. I thought something was off, so I sent someone to investigate. Wasn't it you who had someone plant the rebellious poems among Liu Shiqian's parents' books in the private school? It wasn't me. Your family is the wealthiest in Yangju, spending money like water and wielding immense power. When you saw Liu Shiqian taken away by me, you spread a plague in the prison. You forced him to turn against me. But you never expected that I had already taken his parents out. Nonsense. This has nothing to do with me. I personally gathered all this evidence and questioned the witnesses. Do you want me to bring it all out? Li Ziyue's eyes darted nervously, and her body swayed unsteadily. Xia Buan, no, don't tell Shiqian. I can give you money, a lot of money. I can give you anything you want. Can you just let him be with me now? I remained motionless. Li Ziyue, you insulted him before, and now you're insulting me. When Li Ziyue came to pull me, please, Shiqian doesn't know anything. Don't tell him. The carriage curtain was lifted. Liu Shiqian, who had been waiting for me in the carriage, leaned out and stepped down. When we left, Li Ziyue was still standing there in a daze. Liu Shiqian was not a particularly magnanimous person, without a ruthless and cunning nature. How could he have risen to the position of Prime Minister? He hated those who had framed his parents back then. I don't know how much he had uncovered, but it's unlikely he knew nothing at all, now that this matter has been exposed. I'm afraid Li Ziyue will never dare to see him again. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere was somewhat tense. I looked at him for a long time. Are you okay? He has always been troubled by his parents' affairs. Now that he has discovered that his parents suffered because of him, he must be feeling terrible inside. It's fine. I had my suspicions about her before. After investigating her father for so long, I had already noticed some clues. Besides, today I submitted a memorial regarding Minister Lee's corruption in selling official positions. Their family's days of comfort are nearly over, so Lord Liu is also someone who holds a grudge. Li Ziyue got what she deserved. It's time for her to taste the bitterness of being trampled underfoot. I clenched my fists angrily. Liu Shiqian held my fists and chuckled. Today, you're just like before, unwilling to yield, fighting back with all your might. In the past, I was the most dazzling young lady in the capital. How could I ever bow and bend to others? I am truly happy today. It's been a long time since I felt this exhilarated. All these years, I've constantly been criticized by others. I never realized how difficult it is to endure without status. Not exactly. At the palace banquet today, everyone there held a higher status than you. Yet, you won them over with your painting skills. I looked up at him. I'm sorry, Liu Shiqian. He looked at me deeply. Liu Shiqian, I'm sorry. In the past, I trapped your self-esteem. Don't believe Li Ziyue's words. I never treated you as a plaything. I know, those years when you became increasingly silent, I was truly worried about you. Liu Shiqian held me tightly. It's my fault, but it's not too late. I have never been trapped by you. After marrying you, my father wanted me to enter officialdom, but I knew about the things he had done, and I didn't want to be complicit with him. But he is your father, and you love and respect him. I didn't know how much you were aware of his actions. I could only protect you in my own way. He held me tighter, as if afraid I would disappear if he let go. I thought I could have it both ways. Although I was in the Prime Minister's residence, I was constantly maneuvering outside. The current emperor is from the same village as me in Yangju. I knew he had great ambitions and would eventually rebel. I maneuvered among them, hoping to protect your father after the new dynasty was established. Warm liquid flowed into my collar. I just never expected that the desperate old emperor would kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. He raided the Prime Minister's residence ahead of time to replenish the national treasury, barely clinging to life. On the day you told me to leave, I was actually going out to meet the emperor. But by the time I returned, I could no longer find you. It's not too late. It was I who failed to protect you, who failed to protect father. I hugged him back, never imagining that the truth behind it all was so full of twists and turns. But in your letter to an old friend, you said you were unable to realize your ambitions and deeply regretted it. Liu Shiqian held my shoulders, his eyes bloodshot. He seemed to think for a moment before remembering. That was a letter between me and His Majesty. I told him that after entering the capital, I only felt the court was corrupt and unfit for service. It was after that he resolved to start the uprising. It's not too late. Is it because of that letter that you're making me leave? I felt a bit awkward and lowered my head. Isn't it because I'm boring? I was stunned, only then remembering that when I gave him the divorce letter, I told him, you're becoming more and more boring. After saying this, he turned and left. He said quietly, I don't know the pastimes of the gentleman in the capital. I can't play polo. I can't play the qin. All I do every day is read books. I thought you were tired of me. I regretted leaving that day, but I was also afraid that if you saw me every day, you would grow to dislike me. So that's what he thought. He had taken my hastily made-up excuse seriously. I wanted to open my mouth to explain, but he continued, even if you find me boring, I still want to be by your side every day. I can play polo now, I can play the zither, and I won't be so dull in the future. He hugged me again. I just want to stay by your side forever. I held his face, looking into his reddened eyes. That's a lie, Liu Shiqian, I said, word by word. I know my father has his issues, but he is my father. I cannot abandon him. But you have ideals and ambitions. I don't want you to be trapped by me and dragged down by the Prime Minister's residence. I'm not trapped, but I was the one who forced you to come back. He sighed softly. If I had no feelings for you, why would I have followed you? Li Ziyue pursued me for so long. Yet she never even touched the hem of my robe. It turns out all those years, we both mistakenly believed we were a burden to each other. Why is this happening? Because of the disparity in status and the great gap in position. He thought I brought him back to the capital on a whim and, having lost interest, no longer wanted to see him. I thought he came because I forced him, growing more despondent each day until he fell gravely ill. We both don't believe that we are actually in love. It's not too late. Why did you let Wen-Yijan pretend to be your fiancé instead of coming with me? Because I don't want our relationship to be like this, as if I'm dependent on you. I feel the same way. Not too late. I also want to strive to be worthy of you. So, do you like me, Liu Shiqian? Of course. From the very first moment I saw you, the first time I saw you was at the entrance of the prefect's office. You gave me a handkerchief and scolded the guards for bullying the weak. From Liu Shiqian's words, I finally understood his feelings for me. He was drawn to me from the very beginning. That's why he followed me back to the magistrate's residence to settle down. That's why he agreed to my father's proposal for a matrilocal marriage, and from the start, I lured him with substantial benefits. He said he loved me during our intimate moments. He looked at me with affectionate eyes while we painted and studied together. But I always thought it was my own self-deception. My own illusion. He has always worked hard to resolve the difficulties between my father and me, striving to bridge the gap in our status. Yet, I was thinking of pushing him away. At this moment, it felt as though years of hardship and struggle had finally been soothed. A gentle breeze rustled the carriage curtain. In the flickering light, there were only two people who, after many years, had finally come to understand each other, and two hearts that, after many years, still remain unchanged in their original intentions, leaning on each other. In the capital, there is a never-too-late private school, and the teacher at this school is a woman with exceptional painting skills. The private school specializes in teaching children to read, write, and paint. The children of noble families are sent to the palace school. The children of commoners are sent to the never-too-late private school. The teaching master says it's never too late to start learning. In the second year of the private school's establishment, the young prime minister married the school's Mr. Chu. The wedding was grand and spectacular, with a dowry of 128 loads lining the street from the school's entrance. The bride was carried from the private school in a sedan chair and married into the prime minister's residence by the prime minister, who rode a tall horse. Mr. Chu teaches with dedication, being gentle and patient with children. Minister Liu comes from the common people, understanding their hardships and being the most upright, a talented scholar and a beautiful lady, truly a perfect match. Everyone in the capital lined the streets to offer their congratulations. Inside the bridal sedan, I sat with the veil over my head, listening to the lively clamor outside. It felt as if I had returned to 7 years ago, when I married him. Although he was marrying into my family, I disagreed with my father about making him ride in a sedan and insisted that he enter the estate on horseback. Petals fluttered and scattered along the road. Liu Shiqian, just like in the past, rode a tall horse with a red flower pinned to his chest. I smiled faintly to myself, while in Minzhou, I thought that in this era of peace, we should encourage education and let the common people learn to read and write. And Liu Shiqian also wanted to widely recruit talented individuals through a fair examination system, so I established private schools, and he presided over the imperial examinations. Now we have overcome obstacles, misunderstandings, ideals, and ambitions. Finally, we can stand side by side, although there have been mistakes and regrets in the past. It's still fortunate that we still deeply love and trust each other. That is enough. That's right. I froze. I burst into loud sobs. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I transmigrated into a book, endured 3 years of hardship, and finally managed to survive until the grand finale. The male lead seized power, the female lead married in glory. And the villain was demoted and had his family property confiscated. With the 10 taels of silver I had painstakingly saved, I bought the villain Rong Qi from the human trafficker. Seeing me grinning from ear to ear, Rong Qi's heart was as dead as ashes. Do whatever you want, I laughed even more wildly. Damn it. It's finally my turn to strike it rich. I brought Rong Qi back to my dilapidated thatched hut and helped him lie down on my wooden plank bed, though he was down and out. His cold and sinister gaze still sent chills down one's spine. There was also a hint of undisguised disdain. Not only did he disdain me, But he also despised my creaky bed. Fortunately, he was severely injured, unable to defeat me or escape. I paid no mind and went straight to tug at his collar. Probably didn't expect me to be so shameless, doing such morally corrupt things to him in broad daylight. His indifferent expression finally softened a bit, and as I tore open his collar, he closed his eyes in anger and despair. "Do whatever you want." It felt like he was giving up on himself. I suddenly remembered that today is the wedding day of the male and female leads. While the male and female leads are enjoying their wedding night, he has fallen into such a miserable state and is being humiliated. Just thinking about it makes me feel a bit sad for him. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. He opened his eyes, his narrow phoenix eyes sharp and piercing as they swept around. And he sighed. "Miss, my name is Yu Jiwei." I introduced myself. "Miss Yu, I know there are many young ladies in Bianjing who admire me." Before he could finish speaking, he gasped sharply. As he spoke, I couldn't wait to peel off his outer garment. The fabric was stuck to his skin and dried blood, and when I undid it, I accidentally brushed against the wound, causing his eyelashes to tremble slightly in pain, as expected of the villain. The one with the best looks in the book, even frowning, looks this good. But unfortunately, I've been dealt a tough hand in this life, born a refugee, wandering and displaced. After so many years of poverty, there are no longer any men in my eyes, only a burning desire to get rich. I caressed the silk outer garment in my hand, its texture delicate, the craftsmanship exquisite. Though stained with blood, once washed clean, it should still fetch some money, seeing how I couldn't put his clothes down. Rong-Chi clenched his fists tightly and warned, "Don't delude yourself, you're not even comparable to the lowliest maid by my side. Even if you get my body, you'll never have my heart, your heart. I've never wanted something so useless." Rong-Chi was taken aback, nearly choking on his anger. In the book, he came from a prestigious family. With his father and brothers having died in battle, he was stubborn and aloof, hopelessly in love with the female lead. Originally having so much money that it couldn't be spent in several lifetimes, yet repeatedly provoking Xie Yunju, who had the protagonist's halo, ultimately led to a tragic end. I generously comforted him. "It's fine. Heartbreak isn't as important as unemployment." "Oh, sorry. I forgot you've been demoted to a commoner and your home has been confiscated." Rong-Chi's face turned even darker, and he was so angry he wanted to jump up and hit me. Unfortunately, he was too badly injured and couldn't even turn over smoothly. He turned his face away and completely ignored me. I turned his face towards me, looked into his eyes, and asked with utmost sincerity, "Has the property confiscation been thorough? Are there any secret vaults or hidden rooms?" Rong-Chi now looks at me as if I were a beast. In his eyes, I only spent 10 taels of silver, yet I not only want him but also his money. That's pure alarmism. Seeing that he wouldn't speak, my fingers wandered to his neck, pressing maliciously against his Adam's apple. In a fierce tone, I said, "Spit it out quickly, or I'll sell you off to the brothels." Rong-Chi's ears turned red, but his face remained expressionless. "How do you think I got these injuries on my body? Do you think your methods could be more effective than the torturers in prison?" I had already guessed as much. I tentatively asked, "So where is your family's ancestral tomb?" Ancient people were fond of burial goods. Just digging up the tomb of any high-ranking official could yield plenty of treasures. For a family of officials like Rong-Chi, the contents inside would likely be enough to last me, a living person, 8 lifetimes. Rong-Chi looked at me as if I were a moral vacuum. My heart sank a little, and I continued with a deadpan expression. "According to current laws, those who dig up ancestral graves face punishments ranging from heavy caning to execution." I remained unrepentant. "What about my own family's ancestral graves?" "You mean, you want me to dig up my own father's grave?" Rong-Chi said, pausing between each word, every syllable dripping with danger. If he had a sword in his hand right now, he would have already stabbed me through. When the villain gets angry, he can indeed randomly scare a transmigrator to death. I shrank back and finally asked, "According to the law, do the things you once gave to others need to be confiscated during a house raid? What's given to others belongs to them. Then what if she gives it back to you? Then it's mine." I finally felt relieved. It had been 3 years since I transmigrated into this book, And I hadn't been without my attempts to find ways to make money. It's just that in this era of strict class distinctions and male superiority, it's harder for a woman to earn money than to climb to the sky. The 10 taels of silver saved through frugal living were all for this moment, buying the antagonist Rong-Chi, although his family was confiscated. During his years as a devoted follower, he gave the female lead countless treasures. Can gifts given with the intention of romance really be called gifts? Can those things even be considered the female lead's possessions? I smiled. Unless Shen Shuiying is willing to marry Rong-Chi today, she must return every single one of them to me. Rong-Chi is mine, so his money is naturally my money as well. Thinking of the priceless ancient zither, the rare and exquisite jade, the invaluable famous paintings, and the countless sets of jewelry. Damn it, after 3 years in this book, I'm finally going to strike it rich. Thinking of this, I found Rong-Chi even more pleasing to the eye, even though he wore a gloomy expression that seemed to want me dead. I still carefully fed him a bowl of thin porridge. I fetched water to wash his face and tied his hair back neatly. She washed his outer garment again, dried it by the charcoal fire, and helped him put it on. The original book described him as handsome and tall, and indeed, after tidying him up, he exuded the refined aura unique to the nobility. I really like this flawless appearance of the wealthy. Seeing me struggling to lift him onto the wheelbarrow, Rong-Chi finally couldn't hold back and asked, "What exactly are you trying to do?" "Today, Shen Shuiying is going to marry Xie Yunju. Are you willing to accept that?" I was eager to take action. "I'll take you to crash the wedding." Rong-Chi's fingers tightly gripped the edge of the bed, perhaps unwilling to let the male and female leads see him in such a wretched state. Ignoring his resistance, I pried his fingers open one by one. The fingers are slender, with distinct knuckles, and there is a thin callus at the base of the thumb. It is a pair of exceptionally beautiful hands. Accustomed to wielding knives and swords over the years, it suddenly occurred to me that if he ever recovers, he might just kill me. But it doesn't matter, once I get the money, I'll strike first. As I thought this, I continued to persuade him gently. "You've saved her 3 times. Without you, she would have died long ago. You've given her ancient zithers, famous paintings, rare treasures. Without you, how could that impoverished common-born girl have become the most noble lady in Bianjing City? You merely injured Xie Yunju during the trial, yet you were accused of bending the law for personal gain out of admiration for Shen Shuiying. Don't you feel wronged? Today, I'll help you fight your way back." Before I could finish speaking, a sudden pain shot through my knee, and I collapsed onto Rong-Chi. The next second, his fingers tightened around my throat, his tone menacing. "How do you know all this so clearly? Who exactly are you?" The air grew unnervingly still. Once again, I felt the oppressive aura of the villain from the book, but I didn't panic. Not only did I not panic, I was quite indignant. Who am I? 3 years ago during the flood, Xie Yunzhou's relief efforts became a much-told story. I was one of the victims he helped. Rong-Chi seemed somewhat disappointed and sneered. "Ha, so you're here for him too. But that idiot mixed sand into the disaster relief grain, and so much of it. Not only did I not get enough to eat, but I also ended up with gastroenteritis. I had no money for treatment and almost died." My face was full of anger, and a flicker of surprise passed through Rong-Chi's eyes as his fingers loosened slightly around my neck. I remember in the book, Rong-Chi opposed mixing sand into the disaster relief grain but was used as a negative example of being out of touch with the people's suffering, mercilessly mocked by Xie Yunju. As satisfying as it was to read about it in the book, drinking that disaster relief porridge was a miserable experience. The victims were already physically weak, and more of them died from drinking the sand porridge than from drowning in the flood. But the lives of the lowly are as worthless as grass. Who would care? 2 years ago, when Shen Shuiying was seriously ill, you searched everywhere for a cure and gave her 1,000-year-old ginseng. Rong-Chi said calmly. "Those are just material things, not worth mentioning," I said with a blank expression and a cold tone. "Yeah, you're so noble. I was bitten by mosquitoes, insects, rats, and ants in the mountains for half a year before I finally managed to dig up this ginseng. When I delivered it to the Shen residence, I found out she wasn't seriously ill at all. She had just had a miscarriage. Not only did I lose the money, but I was almost silenced. It's also my fault for having a big mouth. I thought the male and female leads were good people, so I kindly reminded the female lead that such a strong tonic might cause a hemorrhage. That damn male lead immediately sent people to hunt me down after hearing it. Fortunately, I managed to escape by disguising myself as a man, changing into women's clothing, and scattering the money Rong-Chi gave me for buying ginseng in the bustling market, causing a scramble. Rong-Chi's face was full of shock, his breath unsteady. Impossible. Are you saying Shuiying and Xie Yunju have long since? I leaned over Rong-Chi, watching his disbelief up close. A smile gradually curled at the corner of my lips as I looked at him with mischief. Yes, right after her birthday banquet, while you stood outside her chamber receiving an ancient zither from her maid. She was in her room. TSK. Rong-Chi's face instantly turned deathly pale, and his fingers went limp. It seems even the villain can't stand being deceived and played with. He still hasn't turned completely dark. If only he had stabbed the male lead to death in prison back then, there wouldn't be so much trouble now. Sigh. I'll teach him how to be a proper villain later. I jumped off the ground, stood a bit farther away from Rong-Chi, and looked at him with sympathy. Is he truly beyond redemption? Indeed, his methods are ruthless, but as the chief minister of the Dali Temple, he is merely fulfilling his duties. It's just that in this book, the male and female leads have such strong plot armor that even if they do things the world cannot tolerate, they won't be punished. Now that the book has reached its conclusion, their protagonist aura will also fade away. I pressed Rong-Chi onto the wheelbarrow and pushed him toward the female lead's residence. Calculating the time, Xie Yunju should be about to pick up his bride by now. The wedding of the most esteemed lady in Bianjing City and the newly appointed chief minister of the Dali Temple was a widely celebrated affair. Thus, the streets were bustling with excitement as everyone eagerly awaited Shen Shuiying's bridal procession, adorned in lavish red, parading through the long avenue. Only Rong-Chi, with his eyes slightly closed and an empty expression, looked as if he were half dead. Never mind, I said kindly. Don't be upset. Once we get those gifts back and exchange them for money, I'll give you half. Rong-Chi ignored me. He is no longer the glorious and esteemed Lord Rong, with a crippled body and in a state of destitution and helplessness. He certainly wouldn't want to appear before his former colleagues looking like this. I kindly covered his face with a cloth. Unexpectedly, as soon as we reached the entrance of the Shen residence, we were stopped by a servant. Get out of here. On such an auspicious day, why are you pushing a dead man to bring bad luck? As Xie Yunju, surrounded by a crowd, led Shen Shuiying out in her phoenix crown and red wedding dress, she was about to step into the bridal sedan chair. In desperation, I shouted, Shen Shuiying, do you really not love Rong-Chi anymore? For a moment, the air stood still, the sound of gongs and drums ceased, smiles froze on everyone's faces, and all eyes turned toward me in astonishment. Everyone knows Rong-Chi admires the eldest daughter of the Shen family. He even disregarded his own status and, out of jealousy for his rival, inflicted severe punishment on Xie Yunju when he was wrongly imprisoned. As the Minister of Justice, he had investigated hundreds of cases, acted decisively, and made countless enemies. After being impeached and having his family property confiscated over this matter, many secretly rejoiced. Now that he has nothing left, he dares to disrupt the wedding. How dare you claim that the young lady of the Shen family once loved him? If she doesn't love him now, doesn't that mean she once did? There's some juicy gossip. The guests who had come to offer congratulations all gathered around. Even Xie Yunju strode over and bowed, saying, Miss, today is my joyous occasion. May I ask, what is your relationship with Rong-Chi? No matter what your identity is, I, Xie, welcome you to come in and have a celebratory drink. However, the auspicious hour has arrived. Please do not cause a scene and disrupt the ceremony. No wonder he's the male lead, so humble and polite, and his words are so pleasant to hear. I also smiled gently and said, I am Rong-Chi's wife, and today I am here on behalf of my husband to welcome Miss Shen into our family. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned, and even Xie Yunju's expression changed. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Rong-Chi lying on the wheelbarrow behind me. Quietly pulling the cloth over his face a little higher, I'm even more mortified. He cares about face. Unlike me, I only care about money. At that moment, Shen Shuiying also walked over, supported by her maid, her voice hesitant beneath the red veil. Rong-Chi actually got married too. Oh, what about him? His Majesty only ordered the confiscation of property and demotion, but did not say to strip Rong-Chi of his abilities, nor did he order him to be sold into slavery. I overheard her maid whisper. Miss, I saw with my own eyes that it was a lecherous man with a penchant for male companions who bought Rong-Chi. He's nothing but a cripple now, how could he possibly marry? It was indeed the work of the male and female leads, and the lecherous man with a penchant for male companions she mentioned that would be me, when I go out. I always disguise myself as an unattractive man. I never expected my skills to be so effective that I left such an impression on them. Shen Shuiying nervously held Xie Yunzhou's hand, feigning calm as she said, if Rong-Chi has truly married, I would naturally congratulate him. But, miss, your words are baseless. Is that important? I smiled sincerely. Do you really not love Rong-Chi anymore? Shen Shuiying said sharply. Nonsense. When have I ever loved Rong-Chi? How dare you, miss, slander the wife of the Grand Minister of the court? Aren't you afraid of being thrown into prison? The crowd murmured among themselves. Back when Rong-Chi was in power, Miss Shen never wanted to marry him, let alone now that he's just a commoner. TSK, this girl looks quite pretty, but she dares to slander Miss Shen and disrupt Lord Xie's wedding. I'm afraid she won't live much longer. I slapped my forehead and looked at Xie Yunzhou. Lord Xie, I almost forgot that you are the chief minister of the Dali Temple. Please, judge this emotional debt for us. Xie Yunzhou's expression darkened, but in front of the public. He couldn't immediately think of a way to refuse. I said to myself, Miss Shen claims she never loved Rong-Chi, which means you two were never in a romantic relationship. Shen Shuiying angrily retorted, I have always been a woman of integrity. How could I ever engage in improper relations with a man? All right. Then may I take a look at Miss Shen's dowry? I'm not going. The dowry list was in the hands of the butler nearby. It had already been read aloud earlier when the bride left the house. And the sheer extravagance of the dowry left everyone in awe. Before the butler could react, I stepped forward and snatched the dowry list from him. My husband once said that he gave Miss Shen countless lavish gifts because her family had fallen on hard times, just to add some dignity to her dowry. Before the words had even finished, Shen Shuiying's fingers beneath her wedding dress clenched tightly together. The maid beside her tried to snatch it back, but I hid behind Xie Yunzhou and said, Is Miss Shen afraid? As the Minister of Justice, Lord Xie can't even settle a family matter clearly. Perhaps it's time for someone else to take his position. Xie Yunzhou's expression darkened as he waved the attendants away. Let her speak. Very well. This ancient Jiawei zither was a gift from my husband. And this pair of exquisite jade pendants, symbolizing love, I'm sure you've all heard of them. Then there are these precious calligraphy and ancient paintings. This teardrop pearl hairpin, coral branches, and icy jade hair ornaments, these, and these as well. With each item I mentioned, my heart burned with fervor. Money, how much money is all this worth? I suspect Rong-Chi didn't manage to confiscate much during the house raid. After all, he had given all the good things to Shen Shuiying. The people around also gasped in shock. Among the dowry list, aside from daily necessities, anything of even slight value had actually been given by Rong-Chi. But it really does resemble Rong-Chi's style. I had long heard that the Shen family had been struggling in recent years, and it turns out to be true. I raised my voice. I ask Miss Shen to come home with me. If you are unwilling, you may return these generous gifts one by one. With that, I turned to Xie Yunzhou. If Lord Xie has any doubts, why not investigate further to see whether these items were purchased by the Shen family or if my husband spent extravagantly? Xie Yunzhou's face grew darker and darker. With colleagues who had come to offer congratulations watching, he was momentarily at a loss for words. If we return these dowries today, wouldn't we become the laughingstock of the entire capital from now on? But if we don't return them, are we really going to marry Shen Shuiying to Rong-Chi as a concubine? For a moment, he even felt a murderous intent. These lowly commoners, causing trouble on his wedding day, deserved to die. I looked at his gloomy expression and moved closer to the person wearing the python robe. Honorable officials, you must stand up for my husband, with these high-ranking officials as witnesses. Xie Yunju wouldn't dare to take the opportunity for revenge. Sure enough, a trace of apprehension flashed in Xie Yunzhou's eyes. That person, however, chuckled lightly. Rong Qi's wife is quite interesting. Shen Shuiying was so furious that in her desperation, she tore off her bridal veil and pointed at me, saying, "If Rong Qi is really your husband, why not have him come and confront us face to face?" I then took a few steps back, walked over to the wheelbarrow that had been pushed aside by the crowd, and shook Rong Qi, who was on it. "Husband, say something." Everyone was shocked once again. Is it really Rong Qi? He wouldn't really want to take the eldest daughter of the Shen family as a concubine, would he? Wishful thinking. But Miss Shen did accept his generous gifts, without any reason. How could she accept such valuable things? Shen Shuiying pointed at the person and shouted, "Nonsense, when he gave it to me. When did he ever say it was a betrothal gift?" Now everyone has a clear understanding, so it was indeed a gift from Rong Qi. How could this be? Then his actions towards Lord Xie were nothing more than venting his anger on the adulterer. Rong Qi slowly tore off the tattered cloth from his face. With a look of being half dead and utterly helpless, he addressed everyone, saying, "My apologies, former colleagues. This humble one is unwell and will not be paying respects to you all." Perhaps it was the authority ingrained in Rong Qi's bones, but several former colleagues instinctively bowed and said, "You jest, Lord Rong." Only after bowing did they realize they had just paid respects to their former superior in front of their current one. This is bad. The workplace is in danger. Rong Qi, you. Shen Shuiying looked at Rong Qi, her eyes brimming with tears. What on earth is going on? How could you marry such a vulgar and rude wife? And besides, aren't we the best of friends? I smiled faintly and said, "Miss Shen, you must be joking. Who gives such extravagant gifts to a friend? And who would use a friend's gifts as a dowry?" Shen Shuiying, embarrassed and enraged, retorted, "Is the Rong family really so poor that they have to rely on reclaiming gifts given to a woman just to survive?" Rong Qi twitched the corner of his mouth. "Ah, yes, that's right. So he just admitted it so frankly. The once glorious and esteemed Lord Rong is truly lamentable now. We are all working for the court, and the Emperor's favor is unpredictable. No one can guarantee they won't face such a day. To be honest, such gifts should indeed be returned. If my daughter dared to accept gifts from a man in private, I would break her legs." Rong, Shen Shuiying still wanted to argue. "Shut up. Say no more." Xie Yunju, feeling the pointed fingers and whispers of his court colleagues, felt his blood boiling with rage. He gritted his teeth and said, "Someone find out if these items were given by Rong Qi. If so, return them all. Just return the gifts. There's no need to thank me for saving your life or anything like that." I waved my hand magnanimously, while Shen Shuiying stumbled in anger, nearly falling in front of the wedding sedan. The next day, news spread throughout Bianjing City that Shen Shuiying, the city's most distinguished noble lady, had a dowry of only 10 chests, and it's all worthless things like beds, bedding, and wedding basins. It is said that on the day of the wedding, the former chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review, Rong Qi, came to disrupt the ceremony, and Jiang Shuiying immediately returned the gifts Rong Qi had once given her. Some even say that Jiang Shuiying had an abortion for Rong Qi. Otherwise, why would anyone give such valuable items to an unrelated woman for no reason? Listening to the lively discussions in the inn, I silently finished off an entire crystal sugar pork knuckle and returned to the guest room upstairs to check on Rong Qi. Most of the items Jiang Shuiying returned were sold for a good price. And now, living with money is truly satisfying. I stayed in the most expensive Starview Tower in Bianjing, enjoyed the culinary skills of imperial chefs, wore the finest cloud-patterned brocade from Suzhou and Hangzhou, and spent money extravagantly every day. I had Rong Qi settled in the most expensive guest room of the Starview Tower and hired a renowned physician to treat his injuries. When I pushed the door open, someone was actually talking with him. "I told you that the eldest daughter of the Shen family is no good, but you just wouldn't believe me. If she hadn't slandered you in the palace, accusing you of harassing her multiple times to clear Xie Yunzhou's name. That freeloader, how could even the Empress Dowager, who dotes on you the most, not say a word in your defense? Rong Qi looked over at me warily. After receiving treatment, his health had improved significantly, but his half-smiling, half-mocking expression had become even more unsettling. I reckon in a few days, he might just come at me with a sword. He might even go apologize to Jiang Shuiying and then compete with the male lead for the married woman. My gaze fell on Rong Qi's friend. It was the one wearing the python robe at the wedding, who was now leisurely watching me. What are you looking at? Are you and Rong Qi really that close? Then why didn't you save him when he was bought by that creep? Oh, is that so? The person feigned surprise as they looked at Rong Qi. Rong Qi closed his eyes and spat out a single word, "Get out." As the person left, they thoughtfully closed the door, then poked their head back in to call out to me, "Sister-in-law, I'm the owner of this inn. If you need anything, just let me know." Rong Qi shot him a warning glance, and he scurried away. I sat by Rong Qi's bedside, hesitating and stammering. How about, just say what you want to say." He seemed to have guessed a little. I said with a pained heart, "I sold your things for 5 million taels, and I'll give you 2.5 million taels, considering I bought you and saved you. Once you recover, please don't come after me for revenge." Okay, I originally wanted to kill Rong Qi and keep the 5 million taels all to myself, but hiring an assassin costs money. Never mind, I'll drop the act. I'm just a coward. Sis. Oh, Rong Qi's gaze sharpened, slowly scanning my face as he said in a measured tone, "Kill me, and you get to keep the full 10 million taels all to yourself. Wouldn't that be better?" He actually knew what I was thinking. Of course not. 250 is more than enough to spend. Hey. I forced an awkward laugh and stuffed the thick stack of silver notes into his hand. The corners of his lips lifted slightly. "You're quite easy to please. So, what are your plans for the future?" "Of course, I'll buy a small courtyard, hire a couple of loyal servants, enjoy ice-cold drinks to beat the summer heat, gather around the stove to brew tea in winter, go horseback riding in my free time, stroll through the streets and spend money, and live out the rest of my life in comfort. It's a shame you can't order male models in ancient times, but visiting pleasure quarters shouldn't be a problem. Hehe, just thinking about it gets me excited." I waved to Rong Qi. "Goodbye, god of wealth." I turned around with flair, not noticing the deep, inscrutable look in Rong Qi's eyes behind me. I bought a 2-courtyard house in the most bustling area of Bianjing City, hired a retired military officer to help guard the gate and tend to the horses, and bought a diligent maid to assist with cleaning and cooking. I sampled all the delicacies and pastries in Bianjing, visited all the scenic spots in the surrounding areas, and bought plenty of beautiful clothes and jewelry, enjoying 2 wonderful months of good living. Unexpectedly, one night, someone knocked on the door, and when I opened it, it turned out to be Rong Qi. This was the first time I had seen Rong Qi standing. His health had greatly improved, and he was dressed in a dark brocade robe, with broad shoulders and long legs, exuding an imposing and majestic presence that made it hard to look directly at him. But as soon as he opened his mouth, my vision went dark. "I'm broke. Take me in." What a mood killer. It was a total mood killer. I suddenly found him rather detestable, and my voice trembled slightly. 2.5 million taels, you spent it all. He said it as if it were a matter of course. What a spendthrift. An ordinary person couldn't spend 250 taels in a lifetime. I reached out to close the door, but he unexpectedly squeezed in ahead of me. "Laifu, get him out of here." I called out to the gatekeeper heartlessly, but Laifu, who had always been fiercely loyal, looked at Rong Qi and actually shed tears like a tough man breaking down. "Young master, it's all my fault for being useless, for failing to protect the Rong family." "Wait, Laifu. Do you even realize who's paying your wages now?" Rong Qi's brows relaxed as he said calmly, "Don't blame him. He's an old retainer of the Rong family, and has had a hard life. Then let me ask you, where did you spend the money? It wasn't for Shuiying again, was it?" I wore an expression that clearly showed I had no patience for love-struck foolishness. "Yujiwei, have you ever considered that I'm a useless person? If you give me so much money, the consequences aren't hard to guess." Are they? I put my hands on my hips and glared at him angrily. Are you saying I was wrong to give you money? He lowered his head and leaned forward. The moonlight fell on his profile, his nose bridged straight, his eyelashes long and delicate, and his eyes like dark jade immersed in a cold pool, staring directly at me. You bought me, my money is yours, and so am I. Does that mean I have to take responsibility, considering his good looks? Having one more person isn't something we can't afford to keep. It's just that Rong-Chi, being accustomed to a life of luxury, is quite particular about every aspect of his daily life. When autumn arrived, I took Ching-Ching and Lai-Fu out for hot pot, but Rong-Chi couldn't handle spicy food, so the perfectly good spicy pot ended up being changed to a split pot. I quietly wrapped a large dollop of chili in a meat roll and placed it in Rong-Chi's bowl. You're weak, eat a little more. He smiled and also picked up a piece of tofu for me. Without suspicion, I took a bite, only to realize it was half-cooked brain. Rong-Chi, you scoundrel, he raised an eyebrow and laughed. You flatter me, you flatter me. When the first snow fell in early winter and the weather turned cold, I brewed milk tea over a charcoal fire and also roasted some longans and small tangerines. Rong-Chi lazily leaned against the soft cushion while sipping the milk tea. Just then, Lai-Fu rushed in excitedly and said, "The horse at home has given birth to a foal." I curiously ran to the stable to take a look, then asked Lai-Fu with suspicion, "Was the horse this big when it was born?" Lai-Fu glanced at Rong-Chi. "Yes, that's right. The little foal looked very sturdy, pure white all over, with bright eyes, a clever horse that seemed to understand human nature. But I remember, our family's horse is a male." At this, Rong-Chi couldn't help but laugh, making Lai-Fu even more embarrassed, his face turning bright red. Perhaps the young lady remembered wrong. Although a horse was bought when the courtyard was first set up, it was too spirited and had a fierce temperament. After several attempts to learn horseback riding, they all ended in failure. Therefore, I really liked this little horse and was eager to try learning how to ride. But then I thought, he's just been born, and I'm already riding him. Isn't that a bit cruel? Rong-Chi nodded. The snow is heavy today, I'll teach you another day. So I retreated back to my little courtyard, brewing tea, drinking wine, and reading storybooks. A few days later, the weather finally cleared up, making it a perfect day to go out for a horseback ride and some fresh air. Rong-Chi had Lai-Fu saddle the horses, while Ching-Ching made sure to bring along some lamb meat and charcoal, planning to have a picnic in the countryside. But as the group cheerfully opened the gate, they saw a familiar face. Shun Shuiying, her hair styled in a married woman's bun, stood gracefully at the door, her eyes red-rimmed as she looked at Rong-Chi. "I want a divorce from Xie Yunju. So this is the world after the grand finale." Xie Yunju had always held a grudge, resenting Shun Shuiying for losing face during the wedding procession. After several months without conceiving a child, Xie Yunju took a maid as a concubine. Later, for the sake of official connections, he also accepted courtesans and concubines gifted by others. Looking at the lively backyard, Shun Shuiying threw a huge tantrum. But Xie Yunju not only didn't comfort her, instead he scolded her for being unreasonable. "Do you know how difficult it is for me to be the minister of the Court of Judicial Review? There are endless cases to handle, and every one of them involves powerful families and their branches. Which one can I afford to offend? If you can't help me, that's fine. But you spend all day being jealous and petty," Shun Shuiying retorted mockingly. When Yunqi served as the Minister of Justice, he never accepted any family's daughter, yet he never wrongly judged a single unjust case. This sentence completely enraged Xie Yunju. He raised his hand and slapped Shun Shuiying hard across the face. "You still think I'm not as good as him, don't you, you wretch?" From then on, he never set foot in Shun Shuiying's courtyard again. Because of Shun Shuiying's arrival, we couldn't go horseback riding, so we had to light a charcoal fire in the small courtyard, roast the lamb, and sprinkle it with cumin and scallions. I ate until my mouth was dripping with oil. Shun Shuiying cried, her tears falling like pear blossoms in the rain, looking pitiful and delicate. Ching-Ching couldn't stand Shun Shuiying and pouted as she whispered to me, "Look at her, she's crying at the angle that looks best for young Master Rong." I smiled and said, "Do you know what this is called? A simp who simps, in the end, gets everything they want." After the grand finale, the female lead realized that married life was a mess and threw herself into the arms of the villain. The usually cold-blooded villain turned into a homewrecker for love, going crazy and fighting for it. What an exciting plot. Isn't this better than the original book? I automatically immersed myself in the plot, imagining Rong-Chi unable to contain his joy. And couldn't help but blush. Rong-Chi gave me a strange look and asked, "Have you had too much to drink? Your face is so red." No. Feeling guilty, I downed the glass of wine in one gulp. Shen Shuiying also downed a cup and looked pitifully at Rong-Chi. "I don't want to go back to the Xie residence. Can I stay here for the night? I have no money," Rong-Chi said coldly. "My wife makes all the decisions in this household." Shen Shuiying was stunned for a moment and turned to look at me. "All the gifts Rong Gongzi gave me were returned. Did you, madam, take them all for yourself?" "No." Why is she defending Rong-Chi now? And, what Rong madam? Oh right, I almost forgot. I went to collect the debt in the name of Rong madam. Hey, I started talking nonsense. Yes, you just don't get it. Men become bad when they have money, so naturally, women should manage the finances at home, but couples shouldn't let arguments linger overnight. Any conflicts can be resolved after a good night's sleep. It's not appropriate for you to be here. You should go back to Xie Yunju. As soon as these words were spoken, not only Shen Shuiying, but even Qingqing and Lai Fu stared at me in shock. Qingqing tugged at my sleeve, her face flushed bright red. "Miss, how can you speak so bluntly?" Yunqi, however, had a faint smile at the corner of his eyes, as if carefully savoring these words. He even nodded in agreement, as though this was how we usually handled things. Shen Shuiying's face grew even more unpleasant. She looked at Rong-Chi with a pitiful expression. "I'm living such an unfortunate life. How can you bear it, Mrs. Xie? You jest. How you live your life has nothing to do with me." Rong-Chi slowly stood up, looking down at her from above. At that moment, he seemed like an outsider, completely detached, with not a trace of affection in his eyes, only clear disdain and indifference. Shen Shuiying had brought humiliation upon herself. Her face turned ashen, and she staggered away, escorted by Lai Fu. As for me, I had drunk too much and returned to my room, shouting for Qingqing to fetch a young entertainer from the Chu Pavilion so I could listen to some music. Before long, my bed curtain was lifted, and the person before me had such an ethereal and captivating beauty that I was completely mesmerized. "So this is how you usually enjoy life? Speak." A finger slowly traced its way across my lips. I feel the blood rushing to my head. My thoughts in disarray, and in my dazed state, my mind is filled with nothing but immoral scenes. I even recall how Rong-Chi once lay on my shabby wooden bed, unable to resist. He was much more likable back then than the detestable person he is now. I really want to bully him mercilessly. Looking for a young official. "Madam, how do you know I'm not capable? Wouldn't it be better to try me?" His tone was harsh and flippant, carrying an indescribable allure. But I was so frightened that my eyes instantly widened. "He's not a young official, it's Rong-Chi." I instantly jumped off the bed, tightened my clothes, and stammered, I can't. Rong-Chi sat on the edge of the bed, looking at me with a faint smile. My mind was in a daze, and I suddenly thought about the 3 years since I transmigrated into this book. 3 years without a phone. What a miserable life I've been living. I couldn't help but start to cry. I want to play on my phone, woo-woo. It's been so long since I last played games. It's all because I don't have a phone to play with that I started thinking about playing with men. Or maybe it's spring. This damn weather. Rong-Chi came forward with a mix of amusement and exasperation to help me up, but I pushed him away. "Don't come near me. Although you do have some good looks, I don't want to get married, and I don't want to have children. Woo-woo. The medical care here isn't advanced, and if I die, there's no chance to start over. Can't we just be good friends?" Alright. In the last second before losing consciousness, I seemed to see Rong-Chi's doting smile. An illusion. It must be an illusion. Later, Rong-Chi's friend, the prince who pretended to be an innkeeper, came to my place every day to hang out with him. He said that during Xie Yunzhou's tenure, he was too soft-hearted and unwilling to offend anyone, yet ended up offending everyone. He accepted many bribes but failed to resolve a single case properly. The emperor was furious and transferred him to a remote border town, where he became a minor official in charge of household registration. Shen Shuiying insisted on seeking a divorce, but the Xie family refused to let her go, saying that she had even relied on another man to gather her dowry. So how could she have the nerve to ask for a divorce? In the end, the entire Xie family left the capital in a noisy and chaotic manner, an outcome that left people sighing with regret. The prince said the emperor is no longer angry. Initially punishing Rongqi was just because he was upset that Rongqi had delayed his career for a woman. Now he has been entrusted with important responsibilities again and restored to his former position. Although Rongqi has regained his mansion and is thriving, he remains the same as ever, coming to stay in my small, dim side room every night. He freeloads for food and drink, utterly shameless. I was so angry that I chased him away. And he smirked mischievously. Why are you so upset? I remember you saying that there's no conflict that can't be resolved by sleeping on it. Want to give it a try? No. How is this jerk getting worse and worse? I meant between husband and wife, not between brothers. Though I covet Rongqi's beauty, I truly dare not make a move, but if I don't drive him away, who would dare to invite young performers to sing? It feels like my retirement life has lost so much enjoyment for no reason. How infuriating. Until Rongqi tossed his salary to me, a heavy bag. You manage it, or I'll just spend it all again. I really shouldn't call him brother anymore. He often brings me some new and interesting things. Once, he even brought 2 little goslings for me to raise. Those fluffy, warm, and lively little creatures were simply delightful to look at. On fine days, Rongqi would take me horseback riding through the countryside. With the gentle breeze rustling the willow branches, he would turn back and ask me, "Is this kind of life good?" I smiled and replied, "Yes, it's the kind of life I love." The corners of his eyes and brows were also tinged with a smile. "Then I'll protect you for a lifetime. No children, and you can come and go as you please. How about that?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "That seems okay too." Sigh. I sighed. "Damn it. No, never mind. Fine." What? After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.